talking about that last week a little bit.
Hello, hi.
Are you Kaylee?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, it's so funny. I asked Megan. Kaylee, so on the first day of school or orientation, I was like walking up to everybody, being like, do you know Maddie? Do you know Maddie? Do you know Maddie? And I was like, no. Then you texted me. This is the one that knows Maddie. Do you do hair or?
I'm an esthetician.
An esthetician.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yay. That's so fun.
I actually saw your old roommate this morning too. No, everyone knows.
I love it.
Ronnie. I saw her today. I did like an astrology session with her this morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so funny. She's like a sister of mine.
Really?
She's like a very best friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, she was super cool. It was fun.
So did you do it like online or Instagram?
Yeah.
Cool. Love that. Believe it or not, I still remember all of your guys' names. I can't believe it. I personally can't believe it. I had like 6 people in my class and it was like I couldn't get their names. I don't know. Could have been the Greek, but anyhow. Oh, is this the new mat? Or have you been having this one?
I had it last time.
You did? Oh, okay. I didn't hear. Okay. Nice. That's the next one, I feel like. I'm gonna look for that book that I was saying. Did anyone get the Light on Yoga book? It's okay if you didn't. You did amazing. Thank you. I'm gonna look for it right now. I was gonna try to find it in the last D2L, but I didn't get around to it. It's so funny that this is called like the Bible of modern yoga because it's just like so ancient in some of its teachings. I mean, you're going to start to see that in some of the ways that, some of the language that is being used. And I will just be completely honest because I think transparency is really important. There is a little bit of misogyny and sexist this just in some aspects of yoga, not so much in this book, but I've seen it as I flip through. Some of the things I've like read, I'm like, like that's not today. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that because it's kind of how it was, and I also need to say it doesn't disintegrate their teachings, which for some people it really has, where they have this like follower, this teacher, like let's talk drama right now. Has anybody heard of Bikram yoga?
Wasn't that like the cult? Like
No, that's Yogi Bhajan. But Bikram kind of was a cult. A lot of them got culty. Let's just get real. And what I really like is about with some of these yogis, they'd even tell you like, don't be a fanatic. Like Yogi Bhajan said, he was kind of the king of Kundalini yoga, and even in some of the Kundalini. I'm telling you this, but I also don't know why I'm telling you this. Well, there's actually a big reason I'm telling you this, because you get to know something and you find a lot of truth in it, and then all of a sudden you find out that the person that gave you this truth was not a truthful person. But you know what that means? Is that that person is not God. That person is not, yeah, they might be a way shower, they might have this gift or this thing to share and give. But we have to remember at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and being a human being, I kind of look at it like you're half angel, half animal. You know, so it's like we all have animalistic behaviors. I try to take everything with a grain of salt. And I also, I don't know, like I guess the whole point with like the misogyny kind of that is trickled in, this is considered modern yoga, but this is like the birth of modern yoga. This was like what feels like eons ago, the 60s and stuff. And this is kind of when some of these cults, like the late 70s, were kind of popping around. There's Bhagwanish or Osho. He had like a whole, if you ever want to watch a really weird, crazy documentary that happened, it's called Wild Wild Country. I think it's on Netflix. I hope it's still there. It's just got great information. Total cult. A lot of these yogis, that's what they would do. They would come here and they kind of saw like, oh, I not only can capitalize on this, I can share these teachings and become rich. So then a lot of these yogis were very, very wealthy, and they kind of like broke the stigma of like, you know, maybe what we might think is an ancient yogi who like deprives themselves of everything and like lives out in the weather and, you know, just has a cloth on and doesn't have anything, and you know, like that's how maybe some of us might even understand a yogi. But these modern yogis, which is like, again, this is like the dawn of modern yoga, and this is when sexism was really kind of a terrible thing in the United States and everywhere in the world, and it's still going on till today. So with what I'm trying to say is, I try not to disintegrate the teachings, because a lot of what I'm finding out, every single one of these guys did something horrifying. Bikram was not from India, but he lived in India for a long time, and he practiced with some of the major yogis. I'm just getting down to the point of, I'm sharing this information with you because everybody's human. So nobody, not even our own parents, and this is what I'm actually learning through my own process. We should never hold anybody on a pedestal. Any person that's ever been a person should not be on a pedestal, because we forget the fact that they're human. They'd be superhuman though, and then they do crazy things, and we're like, oh my gosh, and then ditch those teachings. And I just find that there's such a disservice that we do to ourselves when we shut off like these ancient teachings. These teachings were brought here by these people. They are not these people. Does that make sense? Yeah? Cool. That's all I was trying to get at. It's like, just because BKS Iyengar brought these teachings in this particular way, he would do these crazy things, and you should see his clothing and so he wears like a little, there's just a lot of like sexy, weird, I mean, whatever. It's great. But on that note, that's kind of how it was. Bikram yoga, he would do hot yoga. That was the first hot yoga that we know. And, you know, this is me just giving you actual facts. He did some things that were really, really, really awful. And I don't really follow Bikram yoga at all, but there are some of these teachings that were brought by particular teachers that also did kind of awful things. Where I still take in the teachings because the teachings, that person did not channel the teachings. You know what I'm saying? They just were the bringer of the light. But in that note, we're all human, and that's what I think this journey is about. Yes, we can transcend and get to this place of higher consciousness and all this beautiful stuff, but at the end of the day, we are human still. And there's something effortlessly beautiful and imperfect about being human, which is like we should open room to that, right? That you're not going to be perfect. You didn't come here to be perfect. The source inside of you is what's perfect. This, on the other hand, we learn to live and move and transmute and do all these things to the experiences that we have. We can either be damaged by our experiences or we can let them uplift us. And that's essentially what these teachings are giving us, this opportunity to take some of the darkest moments of our lives and uplift it into some of our greatest light. So I never want to take away from that, but at the end of the day, the people that brought this, and he really wasn't that bad. He just kind of wore like not a lot of clothes, and he would like do these crazy, and I think he might even have some in here. Just some of these crazy postures or adjustments and stuff like that. So I just wanted to let that be clear and known because I've never really said that to any of my classes before. And I find that, again, transparency is key in remembering that we're all human beings. I think I found this book so I can send it to the text group that we have. I need to expand it with Kaylee here, and then I think I need to add you, Rick, to the text group. I don't think I did that yet. So anyways, we're going to move a little bit, and then we're going to get right into the yamas. First, we're just going to move and kind of see where our head goes and watch ourselves. The idea here is that you're just observing yourself in these postures. And then after you kind of see how you approach it, then we're going to go into the yamas. And then on Wednesday, we're going to physically practice with the knowledge of the yamas. So I'll just start to sprinkle them in and pretty much be like, what are ways we could experience nonviolence right now? It's like maybe this posture, or how can we be more gentle? Right? So we're going to go into what these terms mean forward and back and then apply them to the physical act of practicing. All right, let's find a comfortable seat. Sit nice and tall. Sometimes I like to sit on a blanket. You guys are free and available to use any and all props. Hands on the knees. Close your eyes. Start to turn your attention within. Your heart can be lifted and then your shoulders down the spine. Start to deepen the breath in through the nose and out through the nose. So as you begin every yoga class, sometimes teachers will guide you into a breath. So the breath that we're going to focus on today is the Ujjayi breath. As you inhale, you create this light constriction at the back of your throat, so the breath really drags from the throat versus anywhere else. So it sounds like this. And then it's the reverse of that, or a ha, as you exhale, but the mouth is closed. It's a very simple, basic breath. Inhale, dragging and pulling through the throat, creating that hissing and oceanic sound. It can sound like a faucet. Come to the top of the inhale, squeeze through your pelvic floor, hold. So I like this because it lifts you up out of the pelvis and gives you a nice tall spine. Exhale, creating that ha, hissing sound with the mouth closed. Inhale. Squeeze your pelvic floor, pause in the breath, hold here, and then exhale. Let's do that one more time. Inhale. Squeeze through the pelvic floor. So what you're doing when you're squeezing the pelvic floor, it's like you're bringing it together, or you're refraining from going to the bathroom. Hold, 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 and then exhale completely. Hold at the bottom of the exhale, and then we're going to do a square breath. Square breath is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold out for 4. We'll gradually increase this time, but we'll start with 4. So when you're ready, exhale completely. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, squeeze your pelvic floor, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold the breath out, 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, last breath, inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, take a big breath in, and big breath out. Inhale your hands wide and high. Palms touch overhead. Exhale, hands down to your heart center. So we're going to create an intention for our practice. We talked about this a little bit last week, and then we journaled about it over the weekend, hopefully, or at least just meandered the concept or the idea of what does an intention mean to me? Keep breathing deeply into your nose and out through your nose. Why do we have intentions for anything that we do? And then that was my question of what your intention was with taking this course. But how can this practice serve you in your life right now, wherever you're at? How can it serve your mind? Keep breathing deep. How can it serve your body? And then how can it serve your heart center, your emotional state of being, if you will? And you can have an answer for all of those or just meander. Let that plant a seed of how this is how you create an intention. We want to do something because maybe it will serve us well. So let's be really direct in the ways in which it can serve us. Maybe serving the mind in the sense of quieting the mind, relaxing the body, opening the heart. Very simple stuff. Or it can be complex if you're really going through something and you want to really have it help you, serve you, guide you. Then you can be a little more direct in whatever it is that you'd like it to help and serve. So we won't spend too much time here, but just no pressure. You don't have to create an intention right now, but these are ways in which you can create an intention. So I'm going to give you some silence. Stay with your breath. Feel it out in your heart and your body and your mind. How can this serve me? And then just acknowledge your intention. You might still be meandering it, and that's okay. This is a practice, so just give yourself that. And start to set that intention of whatever it is. I like to make it clear and direct, so you might be new to this. But I like to say it internally. That's what can make it very clear. And then inhale your hands wide and high. Exhale. Hands can stay up overhead. Inhale again, reach up. And exhale, right hand down, left hand reaches over to the right. So we're just going to do some simple, basic stretches. Inhale, center. Exhale, over. Inhale, center. Exhale, over. Inhale, center. Exhale, over. Just doing some side bends just to open up the side. Let's inhale, reach up high. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Very good. And we'll bring the bottoms of the feet to touch. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple very basic postures. I'm sure we've all seen these and have done these before. But you can just come forward. This is one of the only postures. And I love Flavia. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Perfect. You came forward with a flat back. That's very awesome and great. That can be challenging. And this is one of the only postures you actually can round. We don't want to do a lot of rounding because it just kind of aids to like an eventual hump. And you keep doing this long enough and the body will correct itself and create a hump. So the idea is that we want to open up our chest, but here, when you actually round forward, you can create a lot of opening through the shoulders and neck. So find what feels good for you. You can either come forward with a flat back. You might feel, oh, that's really good for opening my low back. This is where my body's at today. Or you might think, I have so much tension in my shoulders. I'm going to round. But try to keep your shoulders out of your ears if you're rounding. Your chin is in towards your chest if you are rounding. One more breath here. Deep breaths into the low belly. Notice where your breath went. Notice where your head is at right now. No judgment here. We're just watching ourselves. Inhale, sitting up nice and tall. And exhale, let's bring the legs together. Feet flat on the mat. If you're sitting on something, which I don't think any of you are, just go that way. And then you can scoot your sit bones towards your heels. And you rock back. And we'll start to rock on the spine, forward and back, forward and back. This is really good for massaging out the spine. And you might notice, ouch, my back hurts. That's okay. This weight that you're putting on your back is really good for your spine and really good for massaging out the back. I like to do this several times. Let's do 2 more rocks. One more. And roll through tabletop position. Your wrists will come underneath your shoulders, knees below your hips. Fantastic. Spread your fingertips nice and wide. And then you're going to drop the belly and look to the sky. So inhale as you drop the belly, look to the sky. That's called cow pose. Exhale, round, cat. Inhale, cow, drop belly, look to sky. Exhale, cat, round, round, round. Very good. So what's happening here in your body? Maybe you're noticing, oh, I've got some tension in my shoulders. No judgment. You're just here to observe. As if there is no attachment to this body. We're more so just learning about it. A lot of what we get attached to are ideas, these things that we can create in our minds. And then when the thing is not living up to that standard, we can be a little mean to ourselves or judgmental or unaccepting. And so as we're moving through this right now, it's natural for us to start judging ourselves. Not that any of you are, but it is natural if you are. So all good, no worries there. Because again, a lot of what we're upholding in our idea of like the perfect whatever, whether it be the body or posture or breath or whatever, it's just an idea. It's just this concept in our minds. Is that really serving us at the end of the day? Maybe not. Maybe it is. Everyone's different, to each his own. Not here to judge each other and how we work and operate. We're not here to operate in the same ways. Everyone works differently. Let's do 3 more. Inhale, sway, exhale, round. Last one. Very good. Just creating some flexibility and mobility in your spine. Really, this is the connecting factor to all the things in your body, from your brain to your body and everything in between. Knees out wide, big toes touch. Perfect. Sit down on your heels. Perfect. And then walk your hands forward, child's pose. Breathing deep. Sometimes just stretching in general can feel really good, opening up the body. The body gets really tight and can get blocked up.
One more breath here. Stay connected to your breath. And then inhale your hands all the way up to their fingertips. So you're going to make little tents with your hands. Perfect. And then take a deep inhale. Exhale, walk your hands over to the right, and your hands can walk all the way off the mat. Inhale, center. Exhale, walking over to the left. Inhale, center. One more breath here. And bring yourself all the way up to tabletop position. From tabletop, we're going to go into one of the most basic yoga poses. It's not easy for all bodies, though. Spread fingertips nice and wide. Root into your palms, tuck your toes. Send your knees up, and then take your tailbone high. Push back through your thigh bones. And then your head's going to hang, and your gaze is going to be between your shins. Push from the heels of your palms. You can bend your knees a lot. As you bend your knees a lot, start to reach your torso to the tops of your thighs. That's going to flatten out the back, and then from there, just keep the back exactly where it's at, and just push back to your legs. Straighten your legs. Your heels may not touch the ground. They may never touch the ground. It's not really about them touching the ground. In fact, there's a little disservice when they do touch the ground, because ideally what you want here is an action. So the action is that you're pulling your heels down towards the mat. Stay right there. I want to see what you look like. Fantastic. Great. All right, now everyone come to a high plank. Your wrist is below shoulders. We're going to work. Great. Okay, when you're planting your hands, look at your hands and how they're planted on the mat. There you go. They're supporting you here, right? So if your hands are going to be out here, even doing push-ups like this, it's just like, it makes no sense after a while. You're supporting yourself. Think about when you stand. You're getting nice and strong here too. Your legs, your bones are what holds you up. It's not like you're like holding yourself up. It's the bones that are holding you up. So stack your bones. And then over time, this will start to really work. All right, spread your fingertips so wide you can feel your skin in between your fingers. Should feel maybe a little weird. Now, from exactly where you're at, push your tailbone high to the sky. Back, 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 back. Yes, yes, yes. Do you mind if I put my hands on you? Is that okay? Say no if it's not okay. We're good? You could just say it out loud so I can know. Okay, I'm just going to push back a little bit. Perfect. Yes, 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 yes. Gorgeous. So you might have a lot of tightness here. That's okay. And come down anytime you need to, Candace. I know you've got things going on, but that was a great place for you to be. All right, everyone's looking good, but here's what happens. So I'm going to come and just push a little, some of you. So I'm going to push you from here. Yes, gorgeous, girl, right there. And then you just feel that out for a second. Wow, that's epic. You did great. Okay, pushing back just from here. Yes, wow. Very good. And then over time, this gets a little higher. Very good. Okay, just one more. And drop down if you need to. Here, I'm going to just adjust you really quick. Yes, wow, that's amazing. So you have a lot of strength here. Very good. Drop down if you need to. I'm going to just adjust you. When you get tired, we start to move forward a little bit. That's essentially where we want to be. That's an excellent stretch. You're doing great. All right, now drop down. Good. It's a lot of work. When you get into that, you get strong. And then you're like, whoa, my hands are slipping. That totally happens. Over time, you'll really learn how to grip with your hands. We're going to go back to downward dog, but I'll show you really quick. The idea, so some of us, sometimes you do downward dog like this or like this. The idea is you're trying to take your tailbone high to the sky. Over time, as you start to loosen in your back, you'll kind of be able to create that nice little triangle. Okay? Then the other thing, the reason why I had you do wrist below shoulders and high plank here, stacking these bones. This is essentially where you want your downward dog to be. For a lot of us, we're going to just naturally do this or do this. That's fine, but over time, we want to keep that length. Cool, great. Let's all go back to downward dog. We're going to do sun A. So it's sun salutation A. This is kind of where basic modern vinyasa comes from, right here. And this might make your wrist
to your hands and take one giant step to the top of your mat. Feet are out wide. Your knees. So let your feet be the width of your mat.
Your legs can be straight. Just hang. Maybe you rock side to side. You can grab onto either elbow. I didn't mention that, but some of you probably already are doing that. And then you just, this way we're just kind of loosening up the hamstrings here. You can always micro bend your knees. You never have to lock your knees. Yes. In fact, what I want you all to do is bend your knees a lot and let yourself kind of hang in between your legs.
Halfway lift. So heel toe your feet in just a little bit. They're going to be still a little bit wider than halfway distance, or a little bit wider than your hip width distance is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now hands come to your shins.
Bend your knees a lot. A lot. Great flat back. Great flat back. Look at these flat backs. Wow. This is great, you guys. This is a great place to be. So essentially from this place, now where our legs are wider here, you would straighten your legs, and this is halfway lift. And the back stays flat. So sometimes when we come up, we might start to do this a little bit, but you're trying to align your spine, and we're also flexing we're essentially flexing our spine, and we're loosening it up, right? Because over time, you can stand up if you like, just kind of bend your knees together. Over time, we kind of stand like this. Gravity, those bones, books, life. You're like this, and then you just kind of become an old little person. So the idea is that you want to open up every day. Open up your chest and start to counteract what we naturally, come on, I sit on my phone like this. I do this all the time. So having some balance is what's going to help flatten out your back and then give it length over time, so you're not going to grow like this. You're going to stay upright, right? That happens though to old people, and that's okay. But there's a way to correct it so that doesn't happen. And I'm telling you, when you start going like this, your back, your legs, your knees, because those bones aren't stacked anymore. Now there's like these muscles pulling and bones that are being shifted just to hold you in not the proper upright position. We are upright beings, but somehow we start to kind of crawl back down to the ground, which that's not really what we want to do here. So anyways, shoulders back. Bring your hands behind you. Very good. Beautiful. Nice. Still a little taller, heart lifted. Love it. Yep, perfect. Bring your feet hip width distance. This isn't quite a part of, it can be, but we're just kind of stretching our chest, right? Pull, act like somebody's pulling your hands down, but you don't necessarily go down. And then keep your heart lifted. Very good. And then release your hands. Palms down at your side. Nice. And then face your palms forward. Lift in your chest, drop your shoulders, but try not to lock your knees. And then slightly activate your abdominals. Keep those shoulders down and back. And now you'll notice when you practice, your shoulders might do this. That's like our thing. That's what we do as humans. Try to keep it down. Cool. All right. So palms are facing forward. This is the top of sun A. Inhale, hands wide and high. Shoulders stay out of the ears. The way that you do that is turn your pinkies in to match, to face each other. So watch. So sometimes when we go like this, shoulders are kind of out of the sockets and in our ears. But when you bring your pinkies to face each other, it pulls them back down. Now there's just little things that we'll do in this class. It's not necessarily how the pose goes. It's just how to get your body into the pose. Does that make sense? So we're trying to get our body. Now, just by doing this, your shoulders are all relatively in the place that they should be. Now take your arms out. Just a light back bend here. You can shine your chest. This might be a lot for some of us, so you don't have to go too far. Inhale, hands reach high. Okay, feet can be hip width distance, or feet can be touching. And then let's bend our knees and lead with the heart with super flat back. Yes. All the way down. Now the only reason why we're bending our knees is because I'm not sure, and we're all practicing for the first time together. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift again. Hands come to the shins. Gorgeous flat back here, folks. Love it. And then now your gaze is just down at the ground. So from your tippy top of your head to your tailbone, you have a nice flat region. Shoulders peeled back. Now some of you already have your shoulders peeled back, which is awesome. But if you look at me, so there's this, And then try to pull and find length in your neck and spine. So pull those shoulders back, stay right there. I'm just gonna come and adjust. Perfect. Great. Yes. What are you doing? Bend your knees a little? Yes, that's a great place to be. All right, now forward fold again. All the way down, exhale. Bend your knees as much as you need to. You never need to lock your legs. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, let's plant our hands, step our feet back. We're back in this high plank. We're gonna do a chaturanga, drop down to your knees. All right, I'm not gonna talk about the push-ups that we do. We're just gonna talk about the push-ups we do in here. Elbows are in. So the way that your elbows are facing right now, eyes of the elbows connect, so this is the eye of your elbow, can be facing forward, yes? And then when you bend, your elbow's directly pointing back. Back. Yes, see, isn't that weird? Watch like this. So they're like those army push-ups. Spread your fingertips wide. You are bearing down weight on your palms. So spread those hands wide, lower halfway. Gorgeous, and then push up. Excellent. I just want to watch you. Very good. Okay, now, let's do a thing. Sit up, right? Have your elbows. Just go like this right now. So when you do chaturanga, I want you to be able to feel this, okay? So if you can't feel this, your elbows are too far out, okay? Let's try it again. Palms down, lower halfway. Feel the inside of your elbows, yes, and then inhale, heart reaches forward, thighs can lift, upward facing dog, tops of the toes are pressing into the mat. It's not too much, you can always bring your knees down if you need to. And then if you need, drop knees and tailbone high, downward facing dog. Once you come into down dog, spread your fingertips nice and wide, start to paddle throughout the heels. Breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the nose. The way we paddle through our heels is we bend one knee as we take that opposite leg down, or opposite heel down to the mat. Nice and straight. Tailbone reaches high. Breathing deep. And maybe for the sake of time, that's what we'll call it at that. That was one whole set A. But you know what? Let's just bend our knees, look to the hands, and we'll do it. We'll run through it one more time. So come to the top of the mat. This time your feet are going to touch, or they'll be hip width distance. Bend your knees every time you come here. Inhale, halfway lift, find length in your spine. Exhale, fold. You can bend your knees, forward fold. Now here, chin in towards your chest. Bring your chin in towards your chest. So this isn't necessarily how the pose goes. It just helps lengthen your back. So draw your chin in toward your chest, like you're trying to draw your forehead towards your knees. Bend your knees. Try to create a connection here. Good. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Rooting into your feet. Inhale, hands reach wide and high, rising high to the sky. Palms touch overhead. Inhale. Exhale, hands down to your heart center. Take a big breath in. Exhale, palms face forward. So here we are at the top again. Inhale, hands high. Exhale, arms out wide. Inhale, hands reach high. Exhale, hinge forward with a flat back. So you can just hinge forward with legs nice and straight if it feels good for you. Forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step your feet back, high plank. Drop down to your knees because we got to get the elbows right first. Elbows are in and back, in and back. Lower halfway, just halfway. If you're all the way down, you're too far down. So your shoulders and your elbows are in alignment. Inhale, heart reaches forward. Thighs can lift, tops of the feet or toes tucked, whatever you like. Drop down to the knees, tuck your toes, send your tailbone high. Good work. All right, let's come down to sitting. Good stuff, everyone. Find a comfortable seat. And now, if you can, I want you to take notes of these yamas. The reason being is I want you to write it. I want you to see it. Because we're going to talk about it on Wednesday while we practice. So if we were to start on the yamas, it's in the introduction and it starts on page 31. So if you can, I would try to, so I just found that link. I'll send it to everyone. You can let me know if it works or not for the PDF. So you can at least start reading. Love that you have your book. But we want to read from page, the very beginning. So when it says, what is yoga? All the way to 31. before we get to yama. I used to just go right into the yamas, but I realized there's a lot of juice at the beginning here. It kind of talks about pretty much what we've been talking about, but it kind of in a different way. So one thing I was talking about at the beginning of class is there are these teachings, and these teachings are ancient. And just like in anything, the way that somebody teaches you, it's like that's their interpretation, if you will. It's not to say that it's right or wrong. It's just that this is one way that the information is being relayed, right? Which is why I try to have you have your own understanding of it. Because then if you were to teach it or share it, you would share it from your own view and your own experience. And experience is the best teacher. Here we are, the yama. So write it down, yama, Y-A-M-A. You could even write the yamas and make that pretty. What are the yamas? So, again, when you read the first part of this, I think it's like page 19 to 31, it's really going to go deep into the sutras. And when we learned about the history last week, the sutras were the first written form of yoga. So before that, it was, and you'll read about this in here, it was from guru, so teacher, to sisya, student or pupil. And it was via word of mouth. So you had a teacher, and then once the student is ready, the teacher arrives. That's essentially how the teachings of yoga were being shared generation after generation, was by word of mouth. So the sutras is the first written book where yoga has been put down in a prescription. And what I just showed you, Sunny, that's kind of like a prescription. It's a prescribed set of poses. They should always look like that. I mean, sure, you can like rendition Sunny and do funky things. After a while, you start to branch off and it's not quite Sunny anymore. So some of these sequences, they're created so when a yogi needed to salute the sun, greet the day, just start to move the body, he knew what to do, right? Versus like, I mean, I don't know, has anyone ever practiced yoga at home or even like from a book? It's pretty funny. You're just like, so it's like, that's fun and all, but it's almost nicer to have a teacher just guide you, look at you and be like, all right, let's kind of move this way, do this, So that's why when the students are ready, the teacher arises. And the yamas, the 8 limbs of yoga, are described in the second chapter of the sutras. And they're not chapters, they're books. And so the first of these is the yamas. The yamas are ethical disciplines. One way to put it. A social, moral code of honor or of standard, a way you carry yourself in society. So like for a lot of us in here, we're not just like going to go out and be violent towards somebody outside. Because there's just a code inside of us that would never allow for us to do this. It doesn't matter what you believe in or what our backgrounds are. It's just that it would be unnatural for us to go and be violent to somebody. Some of us feel that way about animals and don't eat them for that matter. Some of us feel that way about the planet and live accordingly, right? So we all have these moral codes that we just behave in, and it's not, you don't have to be like, okay, do this, do that, do this. It's already there. There's something that you believe in and that you hold true, and then for the most part, and it's okay that our actions don't often follow our beliefs and vice versa, but for the most part, we stay true to that, right? Like you're just not going to go out and hurt somebody for no reason. That's just not in maybe your nature, right? So this is kind of like what these are, but these are set codes. So they're the great commandments, and they help so these are the great commandments transcending creed, country, age, and time. So again, it doesn't matter your beliefs, how old you are, what they are. This is just kind of a general code to life. And what you're going to see here is that the yamas and the niyamas look like the 10 commandments. You'll find them across many traditions, many cultures. And because before there was government, and we weren't being controlled by a source like, laws and things like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, it's very important to have government and these structures in place. Otherwise, it'd be a free-for-all out there. So before there was those structures set in place, we all had to have our own inner compass. Now, the only thing that kind of disservices us with government is that because there is so much in place, sometimes a lot of us don't have a moral code, right? So there's like a give and take with that. Like part of it is just like a child. If you help a child walk too much, they're not going to do it on their own. They're going to be, that's how kids can be. So if something is done so much for us, then we're not going to do it for ourselves. Does that make sense? We all need to have a moral code inside of ourselves. Otherwise, we are going out there and hurting people. I'm just using that as an example, but it is the first of the yamas. So we've got, okay, so ahimsa, which is nonviolence. We're just going to talk about ahimsa. I'm going to say the other ones, but you don't need to write the other ones down yet. Just write ahimsa. Oh, and ahimsa is spelled A-H-I-M-S-A. Nonviolence. And then after that, you don't have to write this down yet. Just focus on ahimsa because I'm going to go on and explaining in ahimsa, and I want you to write some things down. But after that, after ahimsa is satya, which is truth, asteya, which is non-stealing, brahmacharya, which is continence, continence, and aparigraha, non-coveting. These commandments are the rules of morality for society and the individual, which if not obeyed brings chaos, violence, untruth. Some of those. This is what government is in place for. Again, if there's so much already being done for us, then we won't do it for ourselves. All right, so dissipation, covetousness. The roots of these evils are the emotions of greed, desire, attachment, which might be mild, medium, or excessive. We all kind of, as human beings, have this. They only bring pain and ignorance. Patanjali strikes at the root of these evils by changing the direction of one's thinking along with 5 principles of the yamas. So the first one we have is ahimsa. The word ahimsa is made up of a particle a, meaning not, and then the noun himsa, meaning killing or violence. So non-violence, thou shalt not kill, right? For its wider positive meaning, love. This love embraces all creation, for we are all the children of the same Father, the Lord. So there it goes right there, just so you know. It's going to start coming out. All right, the yogi believes that to kill or destroy a thing the yogi believes that to kill or destroy a thing or being is to insult its creator. Men either kill for food or to protect themselves from danger, but merely because a man is a vegetarian does not mean that he follows or that he's nonviolent by temperament or that he is a yogi. Though a vegetarian diet is a necessity for the practice of yoga. Also, that's kind of like some ancient stuff. It helps. And here we're going to go into it. So ahimsa, not killing, nonviolence. What's another way that we could positively translate that? So it's not even like, so the opposite of violence.
Compassion.
Love it. So compassion is a great one. So I would write compassion. Love. If you're even going to put it in action, it's like, well, how could I even... So the opposite of being violent towards something would be... Yes, thank you. It's funny, we linked right there. Caring for something. So when we're practicing, instead of being violent, but there's different ways we can be violent towards ourselves on the mat, which is putting yourself in a position your body's not ready for. Doing it just because your ego is telling you to do it, and your body's like, not today, and you're not listening to that. So that's one way that we can kind of be violent towards ourselves, judging ourselves. What are you doing? Whoa, name calling. Right? Those are ways in which we can be kind of violent or having a lack of compassion for ourselves. The more you judge yourself, the more you will judge the world. So if you have any judgments towards anything, you have to understand it's a reflection of what's happening inside of you. A lot of it can be based off of a little belief or a little experience or something that happened. It can be very muddled and buried in there. But that's why we practice, because these things start to come out and then we get an ability to see them. And maybe even you see that thing and you're like, that thing is this and that and whatever, and we might judge it or whatever, but you have this opportunity to be like, oh, whoa, look at what I'm doing.
I'm judging myself. I'm not being very nice to myself. I'm upholding some kind of like ideal that I need to be, and I'm not going to be that. So that can be a little harmful. And then the more harmful we are on ourselves, the more harmful we can be on others. So there's a reason why we have this moral code for society, because again, we were talking about this last week. Things are an outward experience as kids. We learn through smell and our senses and, walking, and this is up and this is down and all that good stuff. So everything is an outward experience. So then we relate to everything in an outward way. So how we treat the world is essentially how we treat ourselves. But the yogi was so smart and realized, let's just focus on the world because that's what you're already focusing on. So when you're like looking at that person or you have that judgment about that person, that's only there for you because that person doesn't know. And nor should they. Even if you go out of your way to share it or tell them, or, can I offer some helpful feedback for you? Maybe it's more so this reflection of how you're seeing things inside and relaying back to ourselves. It's easy to scapegoat on other people though and on society. Like humanity makes me mad kind of thing. It's like, no, there's something inside of you that's making you mad because the moment you come to peace, humanity, not a person, not a dog, not a place, not a thing will ever sway your peace. Does that make sense? So the lack of peace is already happening inside. But we can easily be like, that driver, this person. And the more we put that out there, the more it comes back to us. So it kind of validates it, right? And it turns into cycles, and then cycles turn into beliefs, and we're in this whole big thing. So the idea here is when you come to your mat, now maybe you notice when you're practicing, it's okay if we have little judgments. We tend to judge, that's fine. But you're there to see it, that's it. Oh, I judge that. Oh, I look at that like that. You're just there for the observation. And as we get more into these yamas, you're gonna see that we can start to detach for some of these like emotionally triggered things. Part of the reason why we're judging or seeing or having a certain thing towards something is because there's an emotional tie inside of us, right? That's the only reason why we know these things. It's hard to call something out in somebody that we have never seen. Oh, you've got this thing, I've never seen it before, but it's like, no, we only know what is happening in somebody else because of what's happening inside of ourselves. So, I'm gonna just like move on from that. There's a lot of good, just because, we could all read it together, which I've done that in the past, but there's a lot about ahimsa. Let me see if I can find one other thing. The yogi opposes the evil in the wrongdoer, but not the wrongdoer. He prescribes penance, not punishment, for a wrong done. And I might have to really read this. So I'm going to have you guys read it because I'm trying to speed this up. So essentially, I want to keep it simple for you. I don't want to like over-exasperate the term. We've got this nonviolence thing, and one way that we can like just bring it into our own self, and this is going to be a journal entry of yours, but how could you relate nonviolence to yourself? How could you have more compassion for yourself? How can you care for yourself? For union with the infinite. So in other words, maybe the whole purpose of this entire experience is one, to come out of the fact that we are animals and that we have this humanistic, behavior, which is fine. It's totally, we need to be that way. But maybe this whole point of why we're here is truth. It's not, I'm not here to learn your truth or yours, and you're not here to learn mine, which is why I often say, don't necessarily take my word for anything that I'm saying. I'm just sharing something with you, all right, some teachings. You're here to find your truth. If everything's an outward experience and this person is like, this is my truth, read along. It might be yours too. It's just a way of distracting you. You might be able to, though, observe globally, like, okay, look at what this person is doing. Like, okay, they're looking for their truth and they're trying to put it on me, whatever. But not having judgment or any kind of thought about it, you're like, okay, like, let me watch what you're doing. You're here seeking truth. But those that are like, this is the truth, that's not the way. The way is within you. It's inside of you. And you're here to get to know you, not that person that's like, so like when you're on social media and you might see somebody say a lot of words and it might like make you feel a certain way. You don't have to take any of that in. And a lot of times people are speaking from opinion, in which if you're not neutral in something that you're sharing, it's not truthful. And I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just not correct for all. It needs to be neutral for it to be correct for all. So if you're like, this is bad, and I'm trying to tell you this is bad. Like, hey, going out and being violent towards somebody, that's not something to do. But there's truth in everything. And essentially, if all of this, if we were just experiencing this life just so we could see ourselves and see how we act, see the ways in which we are triggered, the fact that that one feeling and that one thing led me to be a little violent towards something, maybe that was all I was here to see, not the emotional tie of like, why did I do that? I'm so wrong. I'm so bad, right? Maybe it's not about the fact that it's like, I'm so bad. Maybe it was just like, you're a human being, just like a toddler. They get mad and then they're like, you know, they hit or they bite. It's like they're not sitting there being like, I mean, yeah, if we lay into them, then maybe they're like, I'm wrong. I'm bad for doing that. But really, maybe it was just, did that feel good for you? To hit, to bite? Probably not. You probably still feel pretty bad. So maybe that's not how we want to do that. You know what I'm saying? So you're just giving them the opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to pick this for myself. I'm going to see what feels good here. So essentially, what's right for me may not be right for you. What's wrong for me may not be wrong for you, right? We're here to live to each his own. And then in that space, with unattachment, which we'll get there, finding ourselves through observation. So that was like really loose. I'm not going to go too deep in terms of reading that, but essentially, if our whole life is based, our thoughts, our tongue, the way we speak, and our whole life is based on truth, maybe we do evolve to this higher state of being. Maybe this is a lot of what this, you know, it says reality in its fundamental nature is love and truth, and expresses itself through these two aspects. So it's like, if I were to just be like, and this may not be truth for you, the reason why you're here is to experience love from within, your love that you know. And then in that love, find your truth. Okay, okay, moving on. So we've got Satya, and now we have Asteya. And then, sorry. If you were practicing with Satya, truth, that would mean I'm not going to put myself in a position that's dishonest for myself or not aligned with where I'm at right now. So we might have a certain thing going on internally. We might have this, we might have that. To really be honest with ourselves. And it's funny, I've really gone into way more depth. I've spent like a solid week of just lecturing on these because there's so much to it. But I kind of want to really stay focused on like the physical practice of yoga and just show that these teachings are really important for the physical practice of yoga. But these narratives that we have in our mind, it's kind of like these lies that we tell ourselves or this fantasy that we build for ourselves. The more that you move in your body and you really observe, and it takes a practice of doing it over and over and over again, and then something clicks and you really start to watch yourself unattached. Then all of a sudden it's like you can see these stories you tell yourself. You can see these lies that might live inside of yourself. And I only call them lies because maybe they're not true for you, but you still hold them inside. Like feeling a certain way about yourself, and it's not true. But we were convinced, you know? So this narrative, which goes back to that judgment, which goes back to like, this is a way, in a very small, minute way that we can be violent towards ourselves is by judging ourselves or having this concept of ourselves that is not true and then living by it and then putting ourselves down. The more we put ourselves down, we put others down, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And this is a world that we can see sometimes. It's not all the time, but we can often live in this world together, and that's okay because we're all human. We're here to be human. We're here to mess up. We're here to be messy, but in essence, we're also here to find truth. What works for you? And maybe that inner narrative, that may not be working for you. It might be. It may not be though. So again, that's going back to that truth. So also, there's just different ways that you can practice truth, and I look forward to kind of exploring more physically. But moving on to Asteya, A-S-T-E-Y-A. So the desire to possess and enjoy what another has drives a person to do evil deeds. So, this is interesting. You see somebody that has something. Again, everything's such an outward experience, and you're like, I want that thing. Like a toddler, right? They've got these really work great for toddlers, because it turns out that if we don't learn as toddlers, that we will still maintain a lot of these behaviors in different ways. They're just evolved, right? So you see that kid has something and they're having so much fun, and the only reason why you know that they're having fun is because you can feel they're having fun, and you're like, I want that, and then they go and take it. They only took it because they wanted to have fun. They didn't take it because they wanted the actual thing. And sometimes it is like they do get fixated on those things. But oftentimes toddlers are getting fixated on the fact that there was joy, there was bliss, there was this carefree magic that was happening. I want that too. Right? And we see that in humans. You might see somebody that's flashy and they've got this and they've got that, and they're like sage and peaceful, and they might have a lot of things that you want, and we might even think to ourselves, I want that too. But it's almost like in there is this like, before we evolve as from young children into adults, we have to understand that you can have that too. You don't have to take that thing from the other person or be like, that person is like whatever because they have like everything. I like TikTok. I told you guys this. Kim Kardashian had this hilarious people just need to work, blah, 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 blah. And I knew it was just going to trigger people. So many people got so triggered. And it's like, if you weren't so attached by who that woman was, you wouldn't actually care about the words in which she's saying, right? You're just mad because it's her that's saying it. So what's funny about that, and this will teach you this, is essentially it's like, she's got this, she's got that, she's got a silver spoon. All this stuff has been handed to her. That woman hasn't had to work in a day or hasn't had to work a day in her life. Well, that's just not true. She actually just found a job that works for her, and we want that too. And so that's why we have that mentality. If you had that too, you wouldn't care about what Kim Kardashian was saying. Do you understand? If you had that for yourself too, just so happens she found something, and who knows if it's actually working for her. She just makes it look flashy and whatever, and then we have an opinion about it, right? So that's essentially what I'm saying. So it's like there's ways in which we can steal from ourselves and steal from others and take away from our own experience because we think in our heads, or again, those stories we tell ourselves, this fabrication of, oh, I can never have that. It's like, why? Why? That toddler didn't be like, I could never have that. They just went and got it, and then they got it. Did it make them happy? Maybe. It's like, it doesn't matter, but essentially we don't need to steal because what others have that might be evoking that can just be admiration that we have, which builds this greater place of gratitude inside of ourselves. And then even maybe a drive and motivation to go and get that for ourselves in a different way. In a way that's like, maybe it's not that toy or that thing, but it's this thing. And in order for me to get there, folks, I need to, one, unlearn this narrative and then start to live in a place of truth inside of myself. And once I do, I will understand that I don't need to take from myself by saying, oh, I could never have that. By saying, oh, I could never, or oh, I can't, that's robbing yourself from experience. The only reason why you're here is experience. There's no reason why we need to take experience away. Life is here for the taking, for you to have. Life is happening for you, not to you. But when we have this victimized nature in our brains, it's like life is happening to us, and what a way that really robs from our experience. It takes away from the fruit of our life. Even some of the most horrifying rock bottom moments in our lives are the most fruitful. You gotta set the ground on fire so that something greener grows. So that we're not like, but the grass is greener over there. It's like, no, make the grass greener right here. You can do that. That's why you're here. You're here to learn how magnificent and incredible you are. That's part of your truth. And that narrative is, oh, you'll never amount to this. Oh, you just stay in that box. That's false. You're here to unlearn that and then realize how infinite and powerful you are.
So again, going from that non-violence, it's essentially that non-violence place is redirecting the narrative. Once we start to redirect the narrative internally and take things more neutrally, we start to find truth. Once we start to find truth and we stop robbing from ourselves, taking from our own experience, or I'll never amount to that, or I'll never have that. So many of us say that to ourselves, but you're here to unlearn that. That's why you're here. Right? Okay, so from a stay up. So the way I've taught this last year is I really started to blend them all together because they really do work hand in hand. And I felt that at the end of the course, everyone really in their hearts knew this information. So I feel less loading of the information because I would just like lecture for hours and had a lot of fun with everyone. But it's important for you to also kind of like have some emptiness, to not be overfilled by some of the information, and you can kind of meander it yourself. Cool. All right, so now we have brahmacharya. So this one's interesting, but we're just going to understand it as self-restraint. Now, brahmacharya was first written, so like in the commandments, thou shalt not have sex, I think before marriage or something like that. And then there's even like some commandments that are just like thou should not have sex, like nuns, popes. There are certain people that just don't live with that. But in modern life, and then also yoga, we look at it as self-restraint, you know. And do you have a question? Can you spell that? Yeah, oh, sorry. This one's a big one. BRAHMACHARYA. Of course. So we're just going to look at, so I'm going to read a little bit, but it says, according to the dictionary, brahmacharya means the life of celibacy, religious study, and self-restraint. It is thought to be the loss, well, I don't need to go into all of that. Because you're going to read it yourself, and yeah, it's kind of in depth. But, and also I don't want to like give you too many different ways of looking at it, but essentially the way we look at it is moderation. So just write moderation. So you could say self-restraint or moderation. So we don't want to do anything in excess. So we never want to overthink or overdo. You don't want to underachieve. You know what I'm saying? So there's like this nice healthy balance for us. And again, when you rewrite that narrative inside of your mind, so that right there for me is just going to be kind of like the beginning of like the nonviolence. And I'm kind of meandering on this, so don't let me confuse you here. But anyways, when we start to rewrite that narrative and stop telling ourselves these things that are not true, we start to uncover truth. And then as we uncover truth, we understand that we don't have to rob from ourselves and our experiences anymore by saying, I can't do that. I'll never be able to have that. I won't ever amount to that. I can't be like Jesus. Of course you can be like Jesus. Jesus only came here for you to see how epic you could be. You shouldn't live in any other narrative than that. It's that you are infinite and epic. That's how I believe. Anyways, not necessarily yours. That's okay. Don't take that. Or do. But once you start to live in that truth, we stop robbing from ourselves, right? And then we learn this sense of moderation. We shouldn't excessively feel any one way about ourselves and others. Because then things start to get opinionated. And then through opinionated ways of seeing, people start to get like snarky and trollish and trying to really convince you of something that may not be true. So my favorite thing with people, especially when like trolls on the internet or whatever, is especially if somebody's coming at me, I'll just be like, are your chakras aligned? I mean, what have you done that is giving you this stature to tell me this? I can't believe what you're saying because I can already see how much work you have to do. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I just can't take what people, unless I'm like, wow, and even so, that might not be my truth. That yeah, they might be a sage yogi and they know, they've seen things, and I'm telling you this right now, this is for you. You can still be like, no, I'm not buying it. Not for me. Not for me. I don't receive. That's a great mantra. I don't receive. It could be thoughts, an evasive thought, I don't receive. It could be a mean feeling you have that was sparked by somebody else, I don't receive. Just cut it out. Shut it down. All right, so with that moderation, I'm gonna just like leave that one a little bit open because there's different ways that we can experience moderation. We're gonna continue to constantly go over this, so I don't wanna just beat the dead horse here. One of my favorite yamas is a parigraha, non-attachment. So part of the reason why we kind of live in this, like, no, it's not a misery, for some of us it's misery, but a suffering in some way, you know, you have your highs and your lows, and life can be intense. It's because we have an attachment to the outcome, right? And then that might not happen. Because actually, it turns out your outcome might still be happening, just not in the way that you thought or saw. But we can be so, like, where we're blinded almost by everything else because it's like, it's got to be this way. It has to be this way. I need that $1 million. It can't be any other way. When really it's like, well, maybe on the way to getting that $1 million, you learn a little bit about yourself. Unravel some of those untruths, unlearn some of the harsh ways of being that you've had inside of yourself just because they were pushed on you or whatever, and we just take it on as children. That's when it happens as kids. We're told something and it was harsh, and then we just kept it going and gave it life. Right? The more you think your negative thoughts, I'm not saying that you have negative thoughts, but I'm saying the more we will say have negative thoughts, and the more we pour into that garden, the more that garden grows. So going back into even brahmacharya, moderation, I do not receive. Those negative thoughts are coming in excess, I don't receive. You got to put a stop to it some way. And then it's like, okay, well, am I obsessively thinking about this? Am I obsessing about this right now? Just asking yourself that. And those are just different ways. And the more that you kind of do this process, the more you become unattached. Right? So these things, they just braid into each other. And really those yamas are the keys to life. They are the keys to like ultimate happiness. Because if you were unattached to the outcome, this is the coolest thing. And this, I can prove this to you. You set out for this thing. You're like, okay, I want to do this thing. I'm completely unattached about how it happens. In fact, I don't even need it. I want it. And if it happens, that would be great. Like, okay, let's say it's $1 million. Like, okay, I want $1 million, but I'm so unattached. If I get it, I may never get it. I'm not going to tell myself I won't ever get it, though. Like, girl, you're not good for that, or no, it's not for you. But more so, I'm just going to be unattached. I don't need the $1 million. I just want it. And I'm unattached to how it comes to me. I like to use money a lot because that's like the root of all evil. Just kidding. It's just like a lot of our problems. Suffering and stuff like that. Seriously. So you're like, okay, I want this thing, and I'm not going to be like blinded by needing it because it's kind of a big magical thing. And then all of a sudden it lands in your lap and you get it. And part of it's like, whoa, that was magical. And maybe there were things that happened along the way that over time made you realize that you actually didn't really want that thing. You don't even really need it. What is this? Anyways, what is money? Like, I constantly have to wrap my head, like, yes, it's currency. Energy is currency. You know, there's like this exchange key, got it. But that dollar, or the card, or the money we don't even see anymore, cryptocurrency, it's just like, this stuff is funny. It's not real. We have made it real, right? And we live our entire society based off of it, so it's very real, and there's very great value in it. You know, you need money to survive in some ways, you know? It's like some indigenous cultures would totally not agree with that, but in this society, you need money, you know? And so this is why it's such a thing, you know? But the more we're unattached to this thing, and like, you don't need this thing, it's maybe the outcome of what that thing brings you, right? Like maybe I just need the food and the water and the shelter and maybe some clothes. I don't need that thing. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, when we become unattached, you realize you're like, oh, actually I wanted the outcome. I didn't actually want the thing. And it turns out money is just the journey to the outcome. Does that make sense? So unattached, all of a sudden we grow unattached to this thing of money, and we become more, I want the thing that money brings. Money does not bring you happiness. Money will amplify wherever you're at in your life. So if you're unhappy in your life and you receive $1 million, I'm sure there's many people that can talk to you about how it did not make them happier. In fact, it made them more miserable. Money will amplify whatever you are right now. So before we ask and we want for this thing, this is where all those other niyamas come into place, right? We rewrite our narrative about ourselves. Maybe we were told some harsh things, and therefore we live in, I'm just generally speaking, but we live in this harsh way of seeing. And then we judge, and we're like, what is your problem? And you're doing that, right? And so like there's this kind of this like harsh way of being. So maybe instead of nonviolence, it's just like avoid being harsh to yourself and others. Because maybe like for a collective and the fact that we do live with government and laws and things like that, maybe for the most part we're not violent people. And so saying nonviolent, you're like, yeah, obviously, we already live with that code. But how can you take it a step further? And how can you look down into the underlying layers of actually where you might be harsh to yourself? You know what I'm saying? And then as we're understanding this thing, this way in which we can be harsh to ourselves and others and even the world and the planet, we can really hark down on our planet, which is not great because we have to understand this planet that we live on gives us water and shelter and food and resources. Like, give it love, give back, right? But the way that we live is and more and more and more and never enough. That is a false, harsh, very destructive narrative. The more. That is what these billionaires and holding on to their dollars, you know what I'm saying? And not sharing. Not like that's happening, but maybe it is. So essentially, like, I'm just trying to get into some really deep layers of like the nonviolence and what it can really mean, right? And that maybe like sharing is caring and being kind to ourselves and to others. And the more kind we are to ourselves, the more that we give, the more what we give to ourselves is what we give to others. So if you can be kind to yourself, then you can be kind to others. And the moment you start to live just in that alone, something changes. Truth is born. You see these false walls that we've kept up, that has kept our understanding of ourselves and, you know, all this different stuff. So all I'm trying to say is like deep in some of these layers, maybe false layers that are kind of harsh in ourselves and then harsh to how we treat the world and the people, and just in very mild and you may not even see it ways. But again, the more you treat yourself with kindness, we'll just call it loving kindness. Maybe we start with loving kindness. So when you approach your mat, instead of ahimsa, it's loving kindness, right? Loving kindness next to ahimsa. Okay, so maybe we start to practice loving kindness in ourselves. And then from that loving kindness, we start to learn truth. Like, oh, I've been telling myself this story that's not nice. I've been living in a falsehood. So truth is all of a sudden available right there. And then from that truth, you realize I can stop taking from my own experience and thinking I'll never get that $1 million or I'll never have that person or that thing that I want because that was not real. And I can be kind to myself and I deserve love too. And I deserve all these great things too, right? And then in that place, there's this honoring and this truth. Oh yeah, I deserve that too. And I know that. No one can tell me otherwise. Then I stop taking from my own experience, knowing that everything is here for my taking and everything is available for my offering and whatever. And there's a give and take, right? That's the currency. I receive and then I give. And then I receive and then I give. And that's the currency in the exchange, right? And then from that place, you realize don't overgive and don't undergive. Find a happy medium. That's the balance of life. And then from that balance of life, and you learn those first 4 yamas, you find yourself unattached, emotionally less triggered by the fact that somebody might have flipped you off for no reason on the road. You don't need to be bothered by that. That doesn't need to bring you down. But what's ironic is that if we aren't kind to ourselves and that person flips you off, you might be mean to yourself too. It might validate you and how you are feeling, just maybe in that moment. I'm telling you, things like that only happen so we can see it. That's it. And the more we can see these experiences and be less attached, the more they can actually teach us. And the fruit of life can continually give us. And when life gives to us, what do? We give back. And then we're in this cycle. But what's happening is we're taught to be greedy. I'm just kidding. It is kind of embedded in some ways. And so we kind of get in this mind, every man for himself. It's going to make us all blind, an eye for an eye. It's the real blindness. It's just not what we need right now. We need to start with that loving kindness and then that loving kindness will continually reward you. Do you understanding those yamas a little bit? Any questions? No? Okay, so the next time we meet, so I want you to write down for your journal entry, how do you relate to each of these yamas? So, I gave you a lot of different concepts from loving kindness, but that loving kindness started off rewriting this narrative, this story we tell ourselves. Because I think some of the ways in which, of course, we're not just physically violent human beings, because a lot of us have a different moral code, but I guess it's going down into the deepest depth of where are you mean to yourself? Where are you not caring and compassionate for yourself? Because the moment you can see it for yourself, then you can see how we are, right, in the world and how we treat the world. Now, all of you seem like you treat the world with so much kindness and love. I can just feel that. But still, there's deep, 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 deep layers to it, right? So a lot of that's unlearning and then just relearning loving kindness. And if that's what this is all about, that's what this is all about. And then the next part is that truth. So the more we live in this loving kindness with ourselves, or we're not violent, or we care for ourselves, the more truth is available for ourselves, right? And then from that truth, we start to allow for ourselves to live more, not take from our own experience. I'm just drilling it into your brains. And then from that place, we understand, well, where am I overtaking? Where am I undertaking? Where am I, you know what I'm saying? And then they all relate. And the biggest thing, one of the greatest gifts of this entire experience is to not be attached and so emotionally triggered by the things that happen to us, because then life is happening to us and not happening for us. Right? Cool. That's it. So yeah, how do those yamas relate? Also, I wanted to add this to your journal entries. This is something I usually ask at the first week. It's part of those things where I'm did I remember everything? I think it's an important question, but what does authenticity mean to you? What does it mean to be authentic? And I'm hoping that I remember, but I want to discuss this together on next Monday. So I'll give you a week. I mean, you can write about it or not. You might even have something off the top of your head, but I just want you to plant that seed. Thanks so much. If you've already done that, wave it off for me. Thanks for showing up, you guys.